And so today, we'll be focusing on, it is the 20th Bible study that we are focusing on God's administration of redemption that appears in the book of Daniel. We'll be focusing on Daniel chapter 7. Daniel, there are 12 chapters. And so, up till chapter 6, it was about half. And now starting at chapter 7, now we're at the second half now. Reverend Abraham said that from chapter 1 through 6, even if you did not really pay attention well from the chapter 1 through 6, from chapter 7 and on, if you focus, then you can then better prepare yourself for what's to come. So let us share God's grace together through chapter 7. So we'll be focusing on the 4 great beasts from the sea, part 1. And so Daniel chapter 7 verses 1 to 3 says, let's read it together. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel saw a dream and a vision in his mind as he lay on his bed. Then he wrote the dream down and related the following summary of it. Daniel said, I was looking in my vision by night, and behold, the 4 winds of heaven were stirring up the great sea, and 4 great beasts were coming up from the sea, different from one another. And so it says, verse 3, 4 great beasts were coming up from the sea. And so let's look at the background information of Daniel chapter 7. So far, we looked at Daniel chapter 1. It starts there. Chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, 5, and 6. So Daniel 1 was when Daniel was just taken captive to Babylon. And so and that was during the reign of King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon. And we say that was 605 BC. At that time, we assume that he's about 17 years old. And then in chapter 2, this is when 603 BC. This is when it's 603 BC, and we assume he's about 19 years old now. So 17 is a very intimate number for him in his life. In chapter 3, from chapter 2 was when Nebuchadnezzar had a dream, and he couldn't even remember his dream. And he wanted the interpretation to his dream, but then he couldn't remember his dream. And so he asked, tell me my dream and tell me the interpretation of the dream. Well, who can do that? But Daniel received the dream from God. And then he interpreted for him. And then he saw the vision of the golden, it was about a golden statue. The head was made out of gold. That golden head is you, Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon. And so in the beginning, he praised God, but then later, he did not. And now chapter 3, 17 years have passed since then. And now this is 586 BC. So 605 was the first exile into Babylon. 586 BC is, that's 17 years in the gap between the second chapter and the third chapter, but 586 is another exile into Babylon. And right now, Daniel is 36 years old. And so, at this time, his 3 friends have entered into the furnace, but they came out of the furnace with not even their hair singed. And so, Nebuchadnezzar said, you need to bow down to my golden statue. But the 3 friends of Daniel refused. And now from chapter 3 to chapter 4, once again, 17 years passed by. That's 569 BC. And he's 53 years old. And this is when Nebuchadnezzar, he became very arrogant. He's not able to throw away his pride. 7 years. He lived like a beast. That's what Nebuchadnezzar happened. And this is chapter 4 about. And that's 539 BC. Daniel is 83 years old. This is Belshazzar, the last king of Babylon. And he had a banquet. And the wine cup for the wine was from the temple of God. And then a finger appeared and wrote on the wall, Mene, Mene, Tekel. And then basically, so then he was destroyed after that night. And then 538 BC, Babylon's destroyed. Now a new nation, Mede, and there's Darius. There were 3 big commissioners, and one of them was Daniel. But 2 commissioners were so envious of Daniel that they came up with this scheme. For 30 days, you cannot worship anybody else other than the king. And then if you do, you're thrown into the lion's den. And so that's when Daniel was 84 years old. So today's chapter is Daniel 7. Actually, Daniel chapter 7, it's out of order. It actually goes in between chapter 4 and chapter 5. So this is 552 BC. And that's when Daniel is 70 years old. In chapter 8, 550 BC, Daniel is 72 years old. And so it's actually out of order here. And we see 7 and 8 occurs in between. And so this is the order of the occurrences in the book of Daniel. So today we'll be learning about chapter 7. So Daniel chapter 7, (552 BC), and Daniel is 70 years old. And so this is what's happening when Daniel was 70 years old. In order to know this, in Daniel, there's Belshazzar. It tells you his reign was from 553 to 539 BC. He was the last king. However, historically, it writes his father as the last king, but it was a co-reign. They reigned at the same time. It was a co-regency. So even though his father was Nabonidus, and he's actually historically written as the last king, but his son, since it was a co-regent, he's also the last king as well, pretty much. And so it was in beginning of 553 BC, Belshazzar enters into a co-regency with his father Nabonidus. And this is the timeline of the kings. And so this is one of a visual to help us, and I believe it's from the 5th book of the Redemptive History series. And so here, this is Babylon, and we have Nebuchadnezzar, and then after him, and we have all these little short reigns, and then we have Nabonidus, and then Belshazzar, his son, co-rules with him, starting at 553 to 539. So the first year of Belshazzar was 552. Didn't he start at 553? That was that's when he was co-regent with his father. And the very next year is like the first year. That year, 553, is like his ascension year, basically. And so then 552 is his first year. In the 5th book, it says, According to the writings engraved on the clay cylinders discovered in AD 1854, Belshazzar was the firstborn son of King Nabonidus. Nabonidus allowed his firstborn Belshazzar to rule as co-regent from 553 BC, so the first year of Belshazzar's reign was 552 BC. And at this time, Daniel was 70 years old. So second, Daniel had a dream on his bed about 4 great beasts coming up from the sea. And so until now, he'd been interpreting the dream for Nebuchadnezzar and for other people. He's been interpreting other people's dreams, but here, who had a dream? Daniel had his dream this time. And so it is more firm. Now, Daniel 7, verses 1 to 3, we read it before. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel saw a dream and visions in his mind as he lay on his bed. And in verse 3, 4 great beasts were coming up from the sea. From the sea. It's not talking about the ocean or the sea, like big bodies of water. No. It's not talking about it literally. It's talking about all the nations of the world. Because in Revelation 17:15 it says, this water, it says and he said to me, the waters which you saw where the harlot sits are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. So here the waters is not talking about water, but it's referring to people, multitude, nations, and tongues. They're expressed in this word waters. So remember, 4 great beasts came up from the sea. So these are the 4. What are the 4 great beasts? What's the first great beast? A lion. Daniel 7:4 says lion. It says, the first was like a lion and had the wings of an eagle. I kept looking until its wings were plucked and it was lifted up from the ground and made to stand on 2 feet like a man. A human mind was also given to it. So the first great beast was a lion. Second great beast was a bear. Verse 5, and behold, another beast, a second one, resembling a bear. And it was raised up on one side, and 3 ribs were in its mouth between its teeth. And thus they said to it, arise, devour much meat. So it's like a bear. What's the third great beast? It's a leopard. Let's read 7 verse 6. After this, I kept looking, and behold, another one like a leopard, which had on its back 4 wings of a bird. The beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. And the fourth great beast, it doesn't really say what it's like, but it just says a terrifying and dreadful beast with large iron teeth and 10 horns. So there's iron in the teeth. Right. You might think of, you might bring to mind some like hooligans like that have like these iron metal things in their teeth. I don't know. Anyways, Daniel 7:7-8. After this, I kept looking in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrifying and extremely strong, and it had large iron teeth. It devoured and crushed and trampled down the remainder with its feet. And it was different from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. While I was contemplating the horns, behold, another horn, a little one, came up among them, and 3 of the first horns were pulled out by the roots before it. And so this, when we see this, it's not stated for the first time. 50 years prior, in the dream of Nebuchadnezzar, it's also has it's related to that. So a revelation with the same content as a revelation in Daniel 2. So remember Daniel 2, where Nebuchadnezzar had a dream, but he couldn't remember what the dream was, and he wants the interpretation. He asked, can someone tell me what my dream was and interpret it for me? And then basically Daniel is the one who tells him. And you have a golden there's a statue. The head is made out of gold. The chest, the arms, made out of silver, then bronze. Then the calves are made out of, like a metal. And so this Daniel chapter 2 revelation is the same content as Revelation chapter 7. So Daniel 2:38-40, and wherever the sons of men dwell, or the beasts of the field, or the birds of the sky, he has given them into your hand and has caused you to rule over them all. You are the head of gold. And after you there will arise another kingdom inferior to you. Then another third kingdom of bronze, which will rule over all the earth. Then there will be a fourth kingdom as strong as iron, inasmuch as iron crushes and shatters all things. So like iron that breaks in pieces, it will crush and break all these in pieces. And so, although the revelations in Daniel chapter 2 and Daniel chapter 7 convey the same content, they're shown again in different forms in order to emphasize the certainty and importance of their fulfillment. And so Nebuchadnezzar, he had this first dream. And Daniel, by having the dream once again, it became more certain and more firm, right? With this repetition of a dream. So Daniel 7:1. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel saw a dream and visions in his mind as he lay on his bed. And then he wrote the dream down and related the following summary of it. So he had a dream, and then he saw visions in his mind. He said visions in his mind as he lay on his bed. So after you dream, is anyone record it and write it down? Maybe you record something you can never forget. Like, wow, this is something really important. And so we see that this is what he did. He wrote it down. So with his mind fully alert, he sprang up and recorded the dream down. So he wrote down the dream content. So Daniel chapter 7. So it's basically repetition from the second chapter. It shows you it's going to be more firm, it's more certain. Now Daniel saw God, the judge, in judgment. So he saw God who judges. Daniel 7:9-10. I kept looking until thrones were set up, and the Ancient of Days took his seat, and his vesture was like the white snow, and the hair on his head like pure wool. His throne was ablaze with flames. Its wheels were a burning fire. A river of fire was flowing and coming out from before him. Thousands upon thousands were attending him, and myriads upon myriads were standing before him. The court sat, the books were open. It says the courts were set. And it says that it is the God who judges. It's the scene of judgment. And so then Daniel saw the Lord coming with the clouds and approaching God. So it says here that the Lord will come again with the clouds. So Daniel 7. And so he's basically confirming what is to happen in the future, what will occur. So Daniel 7:13-14. I kept looking in the night visions, and behold, with the clouds of heaven, one like a son of man was coming. The Son of Man, like Jesus. And he came up to the Ancient of Days and was presented before him. And to him was given dominion, glory, and a kingdom, that all the people, nations, and men of every language might serve him. Now Daniel heard the interpretation of the 4 great beasts from an angel. So he heard the interpretation. So Daniel, when he had a dream, he didn't know what it meant. But through the interpretation of an angel, he realized what it meant. Daniel 7:15-18. As for me, Daniel, my spirit was distressed within me, and the visions in my mind kept alarming me. I approached one of those who were standing by him and began asking him the exact meaning of all this. So he told me and made known to me the interpretation of these things. These great beasts, which are 4 in number, are 4 kings who will rise from the earth. But the saints of the highest one will receive the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever for all ages to come. And so Daniel, he is wise, but it's because God gave him that wisdom. God has to tell him for him to know it. He dreamed it himself, but he doesn't know the interpretation to the dream himself. He has to receive it from God. And so it says here, so he asked. He began asking him the exact meaning of all this, and he told me and made known to me the interpretation of these things. Right? So the great beasts are the 4 kings who will arise from the earth. And so we see the 4 great beasts. First was the lion. It's the Babylonian Empire. So connecting this to Daniel chapter 2, the lion refers to the Babylonian Empire. Remember, the golden head was the Babylon, right? Jeremiah 4:7-9. It talks about a lion. A lion has gone up from his thicket, and the destroyer of nations has set out. He has gone out from his place to make your land a waste. Your cities will be ruins without inhabitant. For this, put on sackcloth. And so because of the lion, he destroyed nations. He makes your land a waste. And so this is basically danger for the nation at this time because of this lion that invaded. And there's this threat. And so it says, so being like a lion signifies ferocity and savagery. Anyone fought against a lion? You can see a lion at a zoo. It's a king of the jungle, they say. So Psalm 7:2, he will tear my soul like a lion, dragging me away while there is none to deliver. And so Psalms 22:13, they open wide their mouth at me as a ravening and a roaring lion. 1 Peter 5:8, similar. So it's very ferocious. Okay. So it is like a lion, but it has eagle's wings, which signifies swiftness. It talks about swiftness. The first was like a lion and had the wings of an eagle. So it's faster than an eagle, swifter than eagles in Jeremiah 4:13. Lamentations 4:19, the pursuers were swifter than the eagles of the sky. So they're ferocious, they're swift. These lions, it's a very scary existence. But the wings of the eagle were plucked out. They were plucked off. This shows that Babylon's power would suddenly decline. It's going to be a sudden decline because its wings were plucked off. So 7 verse 4. The first was like a lion and had the wings of an eagle. I kept looking until its wings were plucked, And it was lifted up from the ground and made to stand on 2 feet like a man. A human mind also was given to it. This is talking about a decline. And so he says in Psalm 73:27, those who are far from you, God, will perish. You have destroyed all those who are unfaithful to you. And now 1 Thessalonians 5:3, while they are saying peace and safety, then destruction will come upon them suddenly like birth pains from a woman with child, and they shall not escape. And so it's a sudden decline of the Babylon. Those who do not understand are like the beast, but those who repent receive the heart of a man. So Daniel 7:4, the first was like a lion and had the wings of an eagle. I kept looking until wings were plucked, and it was lifted up from the ground and made to stand on 2 feet like a man. A human mind was also given to it. What does that mean? Well, Daniel 4:16 says, it says, this is what happened to Nebuchadnezzar when he was proud, right? For 7 years, he suffered. And what did he become? He had the heart of a beast. A beast mind was given to him to suffer for 7 years. Psalms 49:20, man in his pomp, yet without understanding, is like a beast. So therefore, we must have not the heart of a beast, but the heart of a human being, created in the image and likeness of God. So we must have the likeness of God. We were created in his likeness. So we just examined the lion, the Babylon. Now the second beast is the bear. The bear in Daniel 2, it refers to, when we compare it, it's Mede and Persia. Mede and Persia. So to be like a bear, that signifies great strength and power. So is lion the only strong animal? No, bear also is very strong. And Hosea 13:8 says, I will encounter them like a bear robbed of her cubs, and I will tear open their chests. There I will also devour them like a lioness, as a wild beast would tear them. So to be like a bear, it signifies mercilessness. You know, when you look in the Disney movie, bears look really cute. But when you were to actually meet a bear, you cannot, they're very strong. You can't fight against them and win. It's also very merciless. 2 Kings 2:23-24. Then he went up from there to Bethel, and as he was going up by the way, young lads came out from the city and mocked him and said to him, Go up, you bald head! Go up, you bald head! When he looked behind him and saw them, he cursed them in the name of the Lord. Then 2 female bears came out of the wood and tore up 42 lads of their number. This scene is after Elijah this is right before transfiguring into heaven. And Elisha's like, it would be great if Elisha transfigured with him. But no, Elisha stayed behind. And so obviously it says kids were making fun of him and saying, bald head, bald head. So I think he was bald. So the kids were making fun of him. You can just say, hey, don't mock me. But instead, he curses at them. He cursed them in the name of the Lord. And then these 2 female bears came out and tore up 42 lads of their number. So the bear is so... And so it's very merciless, the bear. It's very powerful. So although the Mede and Persians were inferior to Babylon, they conquered Babylon. And so it says in Daniel 2:39, after you there will arise another kingdom inferior to you, then another third kingdom of bronze, which will rule over all the earth. So it's inferior than Babylon, but it still conquered Babylon. Daniel 7:5, another beast, second one, resembling a bear. And it was raised up on one side, and 3 ribs were in its mouth between its teeth, and thus they said to it, arise, devour much meat. And so here, the 3 ribs in the mouth represents the 3 kingdoms conquered by the Medo-Persian Empire. They are Babylon, Lydia, and here's Jerusalem. And so before, Babylon was way bigger. But Persia, Media, and it swallowed up the Babylon. Lydia is like Turkey area. It ate that up too. And Egypt. It took control of those areas. So at that time, it was truly became big. Those are the 3 bones in his mouth. And so then it says, there's a command, arise, devour much flesh, indicates that many people will be sacrificed because of this beast. So it says, arise, devour much meat. So this indicates that many people will be sacrificed. So in Micah 3:2-3. So to eat the meat, it means to So how can we see this, understand this? The wicked people of God who disobey him. It signifies the providential history in which the wicked who rebel against God are judged by a tyrant. And later, God himself destroys that tyrant. And this is shown through this. How can they persecute so much people? But then when you look at it, they were in sin. And also the tyrant God will judge him as well. And so this is God's work of redemption. And so in the November 15, 1990, in the middle of the sermon, Reverend Abraham Park stated, some say that the lion-like nation has already passed by. Others say that the bear-like nation has passed by as well. But I do not see it that way. These 4 beasts are beasts that will all appear together in the last days. Yet there is no one who can harm the saints. Please believe that those who are with the Lord, those saints who have been washed by the blood of the Lamb, will surely overcome. And you may say, these nations have already all passed. Why are we studying about this? But that's only half correct and half wrong. Because through this, it's going to show us in advance what's to come. Yes, if Babylon's truly destroyed, why is Book of Revelations describing about Babylon? Book of Revelation is about when Jesus comes for the second time. And it's saying, come out of her, come out of Babylon, it says in the Book of Revelation. So it will happen in the end times. So, conclusion. Even if nations like lions or bears arise in the last days, saints will be victorious if they have faith like that of David. So let us truly have faith like David. Why lion? Why bear? It connects to David. 1 Samuel 17:33-37. Right before he fought against Goliath, he went to Saul, King Saul. He's short, the ephod doesn't fit him. But he was very courageous. In verse 33, Saul said to David, "You're not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for you are but a youth, while he has been a warrior from his youth." But David said to Saul, "Your servant was tending his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came and took a lamb from the flock, I went out after him and attacked him and rescued it from his mouth. And when he rose up against me, I seized him by his beard and struck him and killed him." And so this is what David said before he fought against Goliath. And he said this to Saul. Verse 36, verse 37. "Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, since he has taunted the army of the new God. Armies of the living God." And David said, "The Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear, he will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine." And Saul said to David, "Go, and may the Lord be with you." And then right afterwards, he fought against the Goliath, and David won. So what did David believe in? He believed that God would deliver him from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear. Remember, he prayed, "God, deliver me from the paw of the lion, from the paw of the bear." And so they're very ferocious, very swift. That's the lion. You don't know what to do in that situation when you were to have the lion before you. Same with the bear. But God will deliver. And I believe that we'll be victorious. Second, David had an absolute faith that God was with him. So Saul was praying, and he said, "Go, God." David already believed in God who was already with him. But he's like, "I hope that God is with you." But David already believes he's with him. And it says, Psalm of David in Psalms 23 verse 4, this is the heart that he always had. "Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me." And so this is the heart of David. He's not afraid. So even if we are to have the end time, to those that do not believe, it is a time of fear, but to those who believe, it is a time of hope, time of victory. So this is what Peace Out Reverend Abraham Park said in the middle of the sermon. "Beloved saints, even if in the end times lion-like and bear-like beastly powers rise up and afflict the church of God and God's chosen people, just as David seized the beard of the lion and the bear, struck them down, and rescued the lamb from their mouths, may you believe that through the courageous faith of David, there will be a history of victory and a history of peace in every area of life until the very end."